This is the State of Local SEO Insights with Bradley Benner of Semantic Mastery. This is a video series where I'm covering stuff that we are doing in Semantic Mastery, the hot topic of the week. And I'm just going to go through and talk about things that we've been discussing in our Semantic Mastery Mastermind community and also things that I've been working on and developing. So on a weekly basis, I come in and talk about things that are at the forefront of what we are discussing and within the Semantic Mastery community. And typically what I like to do is go through and review some of the information in the newsletter that we put out, which each week we are now publishing a newsletter that is a summary of what we've been describing or discussing within the mastermind community, as well as kind of summaries with action steps and actionable items from webinars that I host, because I host a weekly webinar every Thursday for the mastermind community. And so we've created a newsletter from that. And that's typically what I will do is review that one of the newsletters on this in this video series, the State of Local SEO Insight series, and then kind of talk through it, add more detail, and also bring in some other discussions that we've had within the community, etc. But this week I want to do it slightly different. So before we get started, I want to reference this newsletter. This is the newsletter from what we call Local Mastery newsletter from Semantic Mastery, and you can go check it out at localmastery.semanticmastery.com. So if you just go to localmastery.semanticmastery.com, you can check out the newsletter. It's very inexpensive. These are for busy professionals that don't have the time to attend webinars and watch replays and recordings and things like that. So what we've done is we've created a really good system to take the webinars that I host on a weekly basis and kind of condense it down into a Reader's Digest version, which is like the main actionable items. So like a Blinkist version of the webinars in written format or text format, so that you can get through it in a matter of 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes versus 2 hours. You know what I mean? So this is really good for professionals that are busy and don't have a lot of time to invest in attending webinars and asking questions and communicating in groups and all that kind of stuff. But it's still very actionable, right? And so I'm just pointing this out so that you guys have access to it if you want. Localmastery.semanticmastery.com. There's a free version. Then there's the full version. It's $29 a month or $250 a year. So very, very inexpensive. But I just wanted to promote that to make sure you guys were aware of it. We're going to go through this newsletter entry today. This entry was from May 29th. So it's about a month ago. But so what I'm going to do is kind of talk through some of these points within the newsletter article today. And primarily what I want to talk about is one of our previous programs and training programs, which was a method for ranking local businesses. We called it Syndication Academy. Originally, we had launched, the very first product that we had launched, a training program that we had launched as part of Semantic Mastery, was called IFTTT SEO. And for those of you that are familiar with IFTTT, you'll probably remember it. But those of you that aren't familiar with IFTTT, it's an application that stands for if this then that, IFTTT, excuse me, if this then that.com. Okay. And this is it's like a kind of like Make or Zapier. This was one of the earliest versions of that, like one of the first apps out that were like Make or Zapier or something like that. But I learned about this back in like 2010 or 11. And I ended up learning how to create using an RSS feed from a website. So the main, like a client's website, for example, we would add a blog to the site. Usually it was WordPress, and we would start blogging from the main website, and we would syndicate the content out to all of the connections that we would make. So we would republish content from a source, from the blog source, which was the client's main website, or a YouTube channel, or both. We would use those as the triggers, the content sources. And then what we would do is just publish content, and it would automatically republish or repost that content to the various social media profiles, bookmarking sites, document sharing sites, video sharing sites, any of those types of Web 2.0 blogs, things like that. So, and it would always contain a link back to the original source. So it would be an attribution link, which would cite the original source. So there was an original, which would be published on either the blog or the YouTube channel or both. And then there was original of the content and then copies. You understand? Very similar to how press releases work, right? There's the original, which is the original distribution point or the publication that publishes it first, and then all the others are copies, and they have a link that cites the original publication, right? So that's what we did. We modeled that kind of process for creating syndication networks, or what we called was IFTTT SEO at the time. Let me give you an example. This is what it looked like. Sorry, I had to find the graphic. This was a graphic, like a representation of what the syndication networks. This was what we called a multi-tiered network, where we would use the blog or the YouTube channel as the primary trigger. And then we would have a branded network of Web 2.0, bookmarking sites, social media sites, etc., that would automatically syndicate the content from the money site, blog, or the YouTube channel. And then we would have tiered networks. So we would have tier 2 networks that we would use one of the blogs, the syndication points from the tier 1 network, the branded tier 1 network, to then republish and syndicate the content from one of the brand extensions, the branded blogs, the Web 2.0 blogs like Blogger, Tumblr, and WordPress, for example. That's what we used as the secondary trigger points, that then would republish that content again out to another batch of Web 2.0 social media, social bookmarking, etc. So what we could do is we could create tiered link building from one content source. It was done in 100% automated fashion. So this was way back in like I think it was 2014 when we first launched, 2013 or 14 when we first launched that product. We called it IFTTT SEO, but they IFTTT reached out to us and said, sent us a cease and desist order and said that they were going to sue us for using their name because it was trademarked. So we ended up rebranding it as Syndication Academy. And for several years, that's all I did to get results for my SEO clients, my local SEO clients, is we would create these syndication networks very similar to what you're seeing in this image here. And then we would build links to all of those assets in those networks. And at the time, we just used to use like bulk spam links, SC Nuke, GSA, oh man, there was just so many of them. Money Robot, all those different types of service, like, mass link builders and stuff. And we would just spam the hell out of the blog properties or the syndication network properties. And then we would just publish content from the main money site or the YouTube channel or both. And it would syndicate or cascade through all of these different properties that we set up in an automated way. And because all those other properties had a bunch of spam link built, we just were pushing massive link equity into those blog properties that were on high domain authority domains, which means they could stand at that type of link building, that mass link building with those kind of what I call bulk or kitchen sink spam type of links. And then it would pass the link equity through those Web 2.0 posts that would have internal links within the content body of those posts that would be pointing to ultimately the target pages on the main website that we wanted to rank. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying. We'd publish content from the money site blog that would contain a link to the top level pages on the main website for the client that we wanted to rank. So like product or service pages for the client, right? We would publish blog posts with supporting content to support a product or service, and it would contain an internal link, a contextual link within the content body of the post that would link up to the top level product or service page that we were trying to promote and to rank into to Google search, if that makes sense. And so because that post would then contain that internal link to the top level page or product or service page that we were trying to promote, then when that post would republish and syndicate out through all these different properties, it would always contain a link back to that post. Do you see what I'm saying? So we would automatically create a whole bunch of backlinks to every post that we would publish, but the post would have an internal link to the top level page, product or service page that we were ultimately were really trying to push. Do you see what I'm saying? And so we would use the blog as a way to automatically build an internal link, but then syndicate that post automatically through all of these different properties, which would build a whole bunch of links to the post. And then the post would push the link equity back to the top level page that we were trying to promote. And we would also get the Web 2.0 post directly to the top level page too. But because remember, I mentioned there was an attribution link that would cite the original source. So there would be actually in all the syndicated posts, there would be a minimum of 2 links. One attribution link that would link back to the original source, which was the post URL. And then the contextual link that was in the content body of the post that pointed to the main money site page that we were trying to ultimately promote. Do you see what I'm saying? So we would get basically links, a deep link to our blog, from every syndicated post, and then we would also get a direct link to our money site page that we were trying to rank. And so it worked incredibly well. And for years, that's all I did. No kidding. We would just set up these syndication networks. We would push a whole bunch of link equity to them, and then we would just blog consistently. Well, that changed because over time that had kind of a waning effect, a declining effect. It didn't perform nearly as well. And so what we did was we ended up, I got away from doing syndication because it really wasn't producing the effect after, this is 4 or 5 years ago now. It really stopped producing the type of effect that it had been for so long. So instead what we did was we switched it over and kind of took the syndication component out of it and called it Brand Expander, because something that I experienced throughout this time now, over the last, 10 years or so that I've been using, or 15 years now, I should say, that I've really been had been using that method, is that it wasn't so much the content syndication over in the last few years that really had the SEO benefit, but what did it still produce the SEO benefit was just creating additional branded presence on various platforms and always tying that back to the main brand. So in other words, part of Syndication Academy before we rebranded as Brand Expander was to constantly try to identify new platforms that we could integrate into this system so that we had additional properties out there that were new syndication points that we would achieve, it would create additional links, etc. But over time, like I said, as we determined that the content syndication component really wasn't producing the effect that we had desired. So as the content syndication kind of declined, what I experienced or what I found was that still building additional, like creating a presence on additional platforms and constantly making Google aware of that presence would still have a positive effect on SEO, right? Local search performance. And so instead of killing the whole service, what we determined was that it was still beneficial to go out and create a branded presence on various platforms, optimize the profile fully, tie it back to the brand, interlink with other branded assets when possible, and then every single time you would create a new profile, you'd get the URL, and then you would go add that to like the same as attributes of the local business schema. You would insert it into the ID page, and then you could also build links to it. You could also link to it with Google Business Posts to, again, just kind of help force Google to recognize that the brand had a presence on these other platforms, right? So it's like spoon feeding the data back to Google to make sure that it was aware of that data. And adding those additional validation points, right, as getting the brand listed on various profiles was like acting like citations, right? It would validate the NAPW, name, address, phone number, and website information for the brand. And so over time, continuing to build those out and always making sure Google was aware of them, which is what I call assisting with discoverability, we could still achieve the desired local search performance gains without the syndication component. Now, full circle, 360 degrees, we went from Syndication Academy to Brand Expander, where we eliminated the syndication component, but now we're going to bring it back. And the reason why is because, but not the same syndication like we did before, where we were just republishing copies of an original post. That isn't nearly as effective as it used to be. But now with AI, we have the ability to create automated syndication engines that can repurpose content from one original content source. It can reformat it into different formats and different media types. So we could take like a blog post, for example, and have it converted into a podcast, a video, social media posts, infographics, other posts that are now supporting posts that will further kind of develop the topic or the concept of the original post. So we can take AI with the advancements that have occurred recently. We can take an app like N8N or Make or something like that and string together a series of AI chat integrations. So, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and work those into where an original piece of content can now be sent into, the syndication app with prompts that then have, specifically tell it what to do with that content. Take this content, identify the entities, rewrite the content with the primary topic of the new article being one of the supporting points within the original article, and then republish that on this platform, right? That'd be one prompt. Then there's another prompt that takes it and creates a video out of it. Another one that creates and then publishes it to where you want to publish it. Another one that does a podcast. Another one that does an infographic. You could have the same article republished multiple times, but with different variations or versions, or targeting subtopics of the main topic to then republish and build links to the top level article, right? The top of stack or top of silo article is the way that I like to call it. So what I'm getting at is with the advancements of AI, we have now the ability to create like a syndication network with AI integration, so that we can create unique content and distribute it across multiple platforms in various modes, like various media types, so that the large language models can ingest it and will be more likely to regurgitate that information, right? Or to reference our clients' companies when somebody is doing a search about their products or services that one of our clients can provide. So in other words, what I'm saying is, it's because of the ability now of using AI to then repurpose content and to prompt the AIs to change the content, reword it, rewrite it, extract subtopics, and then write separate articles for each subtopic and republish those on various platforms. All of those kind of things can now be done. We weren't able to do this years ago. And so we're actually going to be bringing the syndication component back. And I'm in the process of developing that now. I hired some developers to do it. I started to do it on my own, but I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. So that's what I wanted to talk about in today. I gave you kind of the really detailed description of it, but we're going to kind of go through this newsletter article here and just talk through some of the bullet points that we see in this newsletter here that are specifically relevant to what I'm talking about now, which is this kind of more advanced, evolved version of Syndication Academy that has the AI integration. And that is coming, guys. We're having it developed, and we'll be talking about that and bringing it out to our audience as I get a little bit further along with that. But right now, I kind of want to seed the concept so that you guys are aware of how we can change and shift from search engine optimization to optimizing for language models too, right? I heard I think it was Jackie Chow, I think it was, maybe not, but somebody said we should be shifting away from search engine optimization to search everywhere optimization. And I like that. And so how can we get our content to be ubiquitous, our client's brand to be ubiquitous all across the web, no matter what type of app somebody is using to search or which large language model or AI chat somebody is using? If somebody queries about like a product or service in a local area, we want our client's company or brand to be referenced and mentioned, to be provided by the AI chats. That's no longer a Google thing, right? This is now, how do we do that? Well, we got to get content published out across the web, across various media formats and across various platforms, because we don't know which platforms the language models ingest content from. So it's in our best interest to just be diversified in getting our clients' content, branded content that's always tying the products or services that a company provides back to the company, and specifically as it relates to localizing the content so that is really focused for people consumers in a local market that would be looking for those products and services. And it will give our clients a much better chance of actually being found by or referenced, recommended by various language models and other chat and search options now that Google is losing so much market share. So I hope all that makes sense. So we're going to kind of go through this now that I spent 15 or 20 minutes going through the setup. Just want to talk about this a bit. This is, why just SEO isn't enough anymore. We need to really create that omni-channel visibility, that ubiquity that I was just talking about, where we just get our clients' content out across the web everywhere, like as far and wide as possible, but very specifically about their products and services in their local market area, if that's clear. So this is a great way to do it. So this is really about the concepts. As I develop this out, I will be sharing more and more, but this is, regular SEO is just not going to cut it anymore, guys. We need to evolve and change our strategies to be optimizing for all these different platforms now, instead of just the big gorilla of that has been Google for the last 15 or 20 years. So anyway, I just wanted to go through that and talk about reinventing the syndication with the AI workflows. And you can use, I'm having it developed in N8N, but you can use things like Make, things like there's other platforms that you can do that as well. But it's about prompt chaining and a sequence of activities or tasks, a sequence of events, so that the original piece of content comes in and you set a series of prompts and you tell it what you want it to do with the first piece of content. Then from that, again, it kind of daisy chains additional prompts to reformat the content, rewrite it, change it into different media, and then to republish it on various locations. And so that's basically what we're talking about here. So something that I also have mentioned a lot in the last few weeks is I've talked about, competing pages. And the problem is, we don't want to just blog from the main website, because that will create potential cannibalization. Competing pages at the very minimum, which means that you always run the risk of, when you're publishing content from a main blog, it didn't used to be like this, but it is now, because of the helpful content update, by the way. Google is frowning upon redundancy and duplication. And when you have more than one page on a particular domain that is relevant to a particular search query, then Google will often, that is potential cannibalization, which means, one page can cannibalize the other. That I haven't seen a lot of that lately. What I've seen more is competing pages, where Google will show more than one page from the same domain in the search results for a query when there's more than one page relevant to the query. But none of the pages that will be shown will rank as high if they had as they would have had there been only one page on the site that was relevant for the query. In other words, if there was only one page on a domain relevant for a particular query, it would have performed better than if there's more than one page that is relevant to the query, because Google's unsure of which is the appropriate page, which is the most relevant page. And so it will serve more than one page, but lower in the search results. Hopefully that's clear. So what I found is that instead of blogging directly from the main website, use one of the branded blogs. So what I was just talking about creating the tier 1 syndication network, which is the branded syndication network. By the way, I don't recommend doing non-branded networks anymore. That was an older model and it worked great, but now everything should be branded, because that is the most important thing in local search right now, in my opinion, is brand authority. And when it's a multi-location business, it's branded location authority, right? I mean that. And so no longer should we be creating persona-based networks that then re-syndicate branded blog content or branded content. Instead, we should just create more and more branded profiles and then publish content to them in various formats, as I was just describing. So instead of publishing content directly to the main website, which then you run the risk of creating competing pages, then what I recommend is using one of the branded blogs or several of the branded blogs, Web 2.0 blogs, brand extensions, so external blogs that are branded, So like Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress, those would all be relevant. Weebly, whatever, Medium, any of those could work. Where then you use those as the content source, so that you're publishing branded content on brand extensions, but they're external blogs. So they don't compete with the main domain, but they're going to contain links that link to the main domain to promote the product or service pages on the main website that you're trying to promote anyway. But then now you're republishing content from a blogger, WordPress or Medium or whatever, that then is reformatted and republished again in various formats with unique posts per format or per publication on different platforms. Okay, so that's basically what we're getting at here, guys, and you can do that with N8N or Make or one of the other types of apps. And so that's what we're in the process of doing. So choose an external blog to act as the content source of the hub. Then you feed the data into the app, the chat, the AI, the language model that is specific to that company. You create a syndication or distribution engine for that particular client, right? That has information about their products and services, the company, the history, brand information, maybe employees, things like that, so that all of the repurposing of the branded content for that particular brand the AIs will have all the kind of history and a knowledge base, so to speak, available to then reformat the content, rewrite, do all those kind of things. But it will now be on point for the brand messaging, in the brand's voice, so to speak. We couldn't do all that before, but now we can. And so that's what I'm talking about here, using N8N or something similar to automate the rewriting and syndication. But each one of those syndication engines will be unique and specific to one client with their knowledge base fed into it, so that the AI will stay on voice, like within their voice, right? It will stay on message, on brand message, and it will be in their voice, so to speak. So it's very, very powerful way. Again, I'm working on it, so I'll be bringing more information. I just want to seed the idea. You got to go out and play around with it, develop your own apps. We will be launching something as soon as we get it fully developed and tested. Like I said, I hired some developers for it, so hopefully within just a few weeks we'll have this ready to bring out to the market. But some of this stuff, like I said, you guys can get out there and test now. Some of you are already playing with AI a lot, so take this and run with it, right? Going from just SEO to omni-channel brand building, that's again just getting the content or the brand to be ubiquitous all over the web in various formats on various platforms. Okay, so the next thing then is productizing the branded content distribution. Again, it's important to do this in a way that's going to be efficient, and so you could set up multiple trigger points, and you could then work on publishing content to various trigger points that then will work its way through that system. All right. So I wanted to take some time to go through that. I think there's no question in my mind that is the path forward for us as SEO professionals, is that we need to get into the business of kind of amplifying a brand, so brand expander, so to speak, but amplifying a brand in their voice by getting them, helping them to become more ubiquitous online, have a larger presence across more platforms and various media formats, so that it's much more likely for them to be recommended by AI chats and all the other different applications that people are using to seek out products or services in local markets. Okay, so this is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery, and again, if you found this to be helpful today and you're interested in going through our newsletter, or getting our newsletters, which are very actionable items. I mean, look at these; are done really well. So you can get through what is typically like an hour to 1 or 2 hour webinar with me every single week. You can get through it in 15 or 20 minutes with all the actionable items. And so go check out localmarketing.semanticmastery.com, which is here. So you can get our newsletter. Again, it's only $29 a month or $250 per year. But this is Bradley Benner with Semantic Mastery. This is the local SEO insights for June 23rd, 2025. We'll see you next week.